Good morning, everybody. It's been some time since I've been talking with you from up here, and it's not my comfort zone, I will tell you. Our batteries are dead in the clock, so I can't watch the time, and I've already cut a whole lot out of my first draft. I hope this isn't going to go on too long. I will do a few brief readings from the book. Have any of you read this book? I'm not surprised. Well, I just thoroughly enjoyed it, and it came to me at just an opportune time. Some years ago, in my young adulthood, I read an article on how expectations can lead to disappointments, and the article identified several words that are synonyms for expectations. One of those words was hope. I kept this article in mind as I was forming my values, developing my perspective of the world, and deciding what made sense to me in living my life. I've always considered myself a hopeful person. I've created dreams, have been planful, and trust that good things can eventually come out of bad happenings or unforeseen circumstances. Still, despite believing there is a preponderance of good at play by the human race, I am not unaware of those evil elements that are so disturbing to each of us. And by elements, I refer to one definition listed by Webster: a distinct group within a larger group or community, dramatically seen at the present time in homegrown terrorism and in the halls of our legislative bodies. I am also a bit of a skeptic about many things, and I seek some evidence when someone presents me with statements or proclamations that they believe are absolute. Since COVID, I have sensed a shift happening in my life, that I have not gone on what I would call a vacation in well over 2 years. It's concerning to me because traveling has always been such a joy in my life. Early on in the pandemic, I was also missing communal events that once offered appreciated socialization. Even though many of these events have resumed, the longer they were on hold, the more adjusted I became to spending more time at home alone, filling the hours with things like reading that I never prioritized enough time for in the past, or tending to dozens of small projects that were forever awaiting completion. And now I find I want less of that kind of socialization, especially in evening hours when my energy is low. Something else has occurred since COVID. I'm nearly 2.5 years older, and in this time period, I have been dealing with a number of new medical issues, added to continuing surveillance as a bladder cancer survivor, and my ongoing maintenance of the autoimmune disorder diagnosed 16 years ago, for which I might add I'm forever grateful for the support and assistance that this community gave me. When I learned about the Book of Hope, subtitled A Survival Guide for Trying Times, I knew I had to read it. I trusted I would gain something from it that would be helpful during this moment in time that has me feeling uneasy about the direction our country is moving in, about the growing violence in our country and the rest of the world, and about the different realities that hold peace-loving citizens hostage. While no one's future has certainty or a lot of predictability, I would like to have more of each than I feel now. Jane Goodall sees 4 main reasons for us to have hope in a world that has been presenting more and more challenges in living out our lives. 1, the amazing human intellect. 2, the resilience of nature. 3, the power of youth. 4, the indomitable human spirit. She defines hope as that thing that enables us to keep going in the face of adversity. It is what we desire to happen, but she is very firm that action must accompany desire, and we must be prepared for hard work. She does acknowledge exceptions that don't always make action possible, as in the case of being a prisoner. But I would add here that many prisoners believe they were unjustly convicted and educate themselves on the law while imprisoned, and many prisoners depend on the action of others, as in Brian Stevens' Innocence Project and other wrongful imprisonment programs. Either way, I see this as action that keeps hope alive. Jane distinguishes hope from faith and optimism, and I'm going to do a reading here. Faith is when you actually believe there is an intellectual power behind the universe, which can be translated into God or Allah or something like that. You believe in God, the Creator. You believe in life after death or some other doctrine. That's faith. We can believe that these things are true, but we can't know. But we can know the direction we want to go, and we can hope that it is the right direction. Hope is more humble than faith, since no one knows the future. Doug Abrams, who kind of serves as the devil's advocate during their conversations, I didn't say he co-wrote this book with her, and he had previously co-written a book called The Book of Joy with the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu. So during their conversation, he asks if some people are more hopeful or optimistic than others. Well, maybe, Jane said, but hope and optimism are not the same. What's the difference? Well, I guess a person either is or isn't an optimist. It's a disposition or a philosophy of life. As an optimist, you can just have the feeling, it'll be all right. It's the opposite of a pessimist who says, that's never going to work. Hope, on the other hand, is a stubborn determination to do all you can to make it work. And hope is something we can cultivate. It can change over the course of our lifetime. Of course, someone with an optimistic nature is far more likely to be hopeful because they see a glass as half full rather than half empty. And of genetics, she, of course, sees the interplay of genes and environment. Okay. They then go on to discuss Jane's 4 main reasons for hope that I mentioned earlier. The first, the amazing human intellect, which she cites is what makes us most different from chimpanzees and other animals, the part of our brain that reasons and solves problems. I honestly think it was the explosion of the human intellect that took a rather weak and unexceptional species of prehistoric apes and turned them into the self-appointed masters of the world. Doug says, but if we're so much more intelligent than other animals, how come we do so many stupid things? Says Jane, that's why I say intellectual rather than intelligent. An intelligent animal would not destroy its only home, which is what we have been doing for a very long time. Of course, some people are highly intelligent, but so many are not. Of course, some people are, we labeled ourselves Homo sapiens, the wise man. But unfortunately, there is not enough wisdom in the world today. And then they go on to discuss language and communication. So I'll move on to reason number 2. The expected one, the resilience of nature. We have all observed and we understand this one. She tells of the scientific prediction that nothing would grow for decades on the Nagasaki site where World War II's second atomic bomb was dropped. Yet, 2 500-year-old camphor trees had survived the blast, and she describes the one she saw. It has regrown, and despite its trunk being cracked and fissured and black inside, it still puts out new leaves each spring. She loves tree stories. And she sees that they speak to what Albert Schweitzer referred to as the will to live. There are several tree stories in the book, including the one about the survivor tree at Ground Zero. She was in New York on 9/11, by the way. But I'm going to read just one about the Walemi pines. This is her very favorite tree story. David Noble, a park ranger in Australia, discovered an unexplored and wild canyon. He rappelled down beside a waterfall as he walked along the forest floor. He came upon trees he was unfamiliar with. He picked a few leaves and subsequently gave them to some botanists for identification. They couldn't identify them at first, but imagine their excitement when they discovered that these leaves were identical with the fossilized imprint of a leaf found on an ancient rock. It was from a species long thought to be extinct, a species known only from the fossil record, a species that turned out to have survived for 200 million years. Those trees, who came to be known as the Walemi pines, had been in that canyon, getting on with their lives through 17 ice ages. Okay. Reason number 3, the power of young people. In 1991, the Jane Goodall Institute founded a youth organization called Roots and Shoots. It brings together young people, preschool to university age, to influence change with environmental, humanitarian, and conservation issues. It creates jobs and internships in the US and around the world. Jane mentions Greta Thunberg and her international climate movement called Fridays for Future. Amazing work raising awareness about the climate crisis. Jane refers to her speech in the book, her speech at the World Economic Forum. And I'm going to read just a bit of that speech with many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with this, and then I will share Jane's reply to it. Adults keep saying we owe it to young people to give them hope. This is Greta. But I don't want your hope. I don't want you to be hopeful. I want you to panic. I want you to feel the fear I feel every day, and then I want you to act. I want you to act as you would in a crisis. I want you to act as if your house was on fire, because it is. And Jane replies, we do need to respond with fear and anger about what is happening. Our house is on fire, but if we don't have hope that we can put the fire out, we will give up. It is not hope or fear or anger. We need them all. While Jane sees it as a cop-out for adults to say it is up to young people to solve these problems, She also sees their influences on parents and grandparents. After 3 decades of roots and shoots, these kids are now represented in politics, journalism, and urban planning. They are business people, teachers, and gardeners. Reason number 4, the indomitable human spirit. Jane defines spirit as her energy force, an inner strength. It comes from her sense of being connected to the great spiritual power she feels so strongly, especially when in nature. This indomitable human spirit, she says, is that quality in us that makes us tackle and never give up what seems impossible. Examples of people who embody this spirit are well known to us: Martin Luther King, Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, and even Winston Churchill, who inspired Britain to fight Nazi Germany, even when almost every European country had been defeated. In my mind, the world is desperate for one of these leaders now. She also sees this indomitable human spirit in refugees and people with disabilities, in their courage and determination to overcome their challenges. She attributes the evolution of our brains, our ability to cooperate, and our absolute need for adaptability as reasons this spirit can bring us to pursue a course of action. Inspiring stories about people who demonstrate an indomitable spirit are shared by both Jane and Doug, including her husband Derek's, who was told he'd never walk again after a World War I injury. She ponders whether this thing humans define as soul or spirit or psyche animates everything living, plants, animals, and perhaps even the rocks that Native Americans looked upon as brothers and sisters, worthy of respect and care. Jane repeats several times in the book what she sees as the power of stories, that they are what reach the heart far more than facts, figures, and statistics. She speaks of war, which she lived through in England, and as Churchill believed, she believes that disaster can bring out the best in people. Some of what she believes sound like cliches, and while she gives storied examples to each to back up what she says, we know that most of us, we humans, don't have this kind of courage. Or are we willing to think we are able to give the effort and take the time needed to try to influence change? She shares that she was a shy child, often ill, and not a good student until her university years, when she realized how hard she'd have to work to get and do what she wanted. What were the influences in Jane Goodall's life that helped form the person she became? She says she had an extremely supportive family that were all wonderful role models. And though her parents divorced at the end of World War II, she believes she inherited a very strong constitution from her father. She also thinks growing up in England during World War II and the defeat of Nazi Germany strongly influenced the choices she has made. Of her many challenges with scientists, government officials, and corporate executives, she says she's pretty obstinate and does not give up easily. She doesn't believe in fate or destiny or even coincidence. She believes in free choice and that everything happens for a reason. These conversations between Jane Goodall and Doug Abrams included discussion on religion and spirituality and the convergence of science with each. They also spoke about death and whether it is the process of dying that we fear more than death itself. She shares her thoughts on reincarnation, kind of summed up with her belief that there is surely a reason for us to be on this planet, and that surely we wouldn't be given only one chance. She does respect that for some people, religion is their only hope and the way they survive their traumas and losses. With regard to the science of hope research, some have identified the hope cycle. It lists 4 components essential to lasting hope in our lives. 1, realistic goals, and 2, realistic pathways. 3, confidence we can achieve these goals. And 4, support to overcome adversity along the way. Jane adds that a sense of humor helps with our resilience through it all. While she acknowledges the harsh realities, like the growing population of humans and livestock, and that 7 million of us humans are using up nature's finite resources faster than nature can replenish them, she sees the corruption that perpetuates much of our social and environmental challenges, and that too many people are acquiring way more stuff than they need. Yet she continues to believe that if the head and the heart work together to create good government and come to affect the uneven distribution of wealth, change can come. She is realistic about the downside of technology with the fake news that travels through social media, but she applauds how media has technology. She applauds how technology has advanced healthcare, especially in demonstrating early signs of health problems. Of the media in general, again, she sees 2 sides of the coin. Yes, it reports too much of the bad and hateful things rather than goodness and kindness, but the media helps more people understand what is wrong in our world, and through the lens of human progress, has had a part in our becoming more caring and compassionate, despite the cruelty and injustice we see. The 3 conversations between Jane and Doug took place over a year and a half, and the pandemic occurred between the 2nd and 3rd. The first 2 were face-to-face, and the last by Zoom. The pandemic, she says, is a great example of our adaptability and creativity. At a pretty young age, she learned she had a gift for communicating and reaching hearts through her spoken and written word. Now she has a new persona. She calls it Virtual Jane. In the 300 presentations she does each year, she does not read from notes. She thinks that her steady eye contact and speaking from her heart is what encourages people to take action. Although her focus in the book is on nature and the environment, she does address nationalism, racism, sexism, and how the distribution of wealth worldwide is the common denominator for so much that is wrong in our world. She is emphatic that nature does not need us. We need nature. These are all things that we surely contemplate from one degree or another as we live our lives each day. Some, like me, with what I call the worry and depression genes, probably think about these realities a lot more than others, or at least I allow them to cause a downturn in my mood. Still, I am grateful for so many things. I can breathe with ease. Although testing demonstrates my hearing could benefit from hearing aids, I have thus far rejected adding something else in my life requiring maintenance. I can hear birdsong, the distant sounds of the train and the interstate, my refrigerator humming, and even some conversations taking place on the creeper trail, despite the distance between the trail and my house at the back of the park. Angie's saying yes. My birthday wish for the past 25 years has been the same: good health. My knees and hips are original. Cataracts have not progressed to a need for surgery. And the quality of my vision allows me to see nature's beauty in all its glory. Panoramas of green, the perfection of a tiny wildflower, blue sky and cloud shapes, even the ants on my dark kitchen counter that have been visiting me lately. In the book, a syndrome is mentioned called eco-grief, which came from a report on the climate crisis. It's when people experience helplessness, depression, fear, fatalism, and resignation about the disrespect and destruction of our planet. I feel all of these things. But despite this distress, I would like to live long enough to see my grandboys become adults, at least to reach young adulthood. Barring the eternal unforeseen, that would be about 15 more years added to my 79. I have pretty good longevity genes. My mom lived to 92 and my dad 97. The pandemic has brought me a great deal of time to contemplate many of the things I have spoken of today. When I began reading the Book of Hope, the murders in Buffalo and Uvalde had not occurred. I was quick to tear up as each story unfolded, but had the sense each day added on, that reading the book about hope was helping me deal with the terrible, terrible heartache I felt. Perhaps it was because I was so wrapped up in learning about Jane Goodall's remarkable life. But I think more, it was that I felt I was in her company as I read her words, all of them so filled with wisdom and respect for all living things, like each of our UU principles. I can honestly say I do feel better at this moment about the concerns I was having in my own life, that I feel more trusting that they will continue to be resolved, that I can deal with the uncertainties of the moment that had been looming so large for me. And I will be remembering, as we all continue to process some of the truly horrific happenings in the world, Jane Goodall's unwavering belief that even in the grimmest of circumstances, hope can take root.